Elwood there. Let's talk to Michael Fabricant, Conservative MP for Lichfield. Michael Fabricant, are you still backing the Prime Minister after this report?
Yes, I mean, it's a very, very tough judgment to make. It's a damning report. Nobody doubts that. My own constituents, many of them are very angry because they, as I, obeyed lockdown laws to the letter. But, you know, I have to sort of look at it in the whole. It's not just COVID, it's what's happening in the Ukraine, it's the economy, and so on and so forth. So the answer to your question is yes, I am backing the Prime Minister.
Should we have somebody in Downing Street leading the country through these tumultuous times who's asked at a news conference about his character? Are you a liar? Asked about whether he has integrity, whether he's a charlatan. Is that really the best the Tory party can offer the public at this particular moment in time?
Well, it is a difficult time, absolutely. And of course, these are unique times. Not in 100 years have we had a pandemic like this. And I don't think ever has a government imposed rules on its population about how they should behave. But, you know, Tony Blair was accused of being a liar, but he did what he thought at the time was right. And I was talking about Iraq. You know, this is not actually unique, even though the opposition tried to make out that it is. And as I say, there's a broader picture here, and it's the broader picture. Where do we go from here? I mean, I asked the Prime Minister in the House of Commons today, what changes has he made? How can we be assured, actually, that this won't happen again? And he talked about the appointment of a permanent private secretary actually based in Number 10. I mean, a lot of people think Number 10 is a small semi-detached building. It's 5,300 square metres, and, you know, there are several hundred people there. So it's quite amazing to me, actually, that there wasn't previously an Office of Prime Minister, which is something he is now putting in place.
Well, Martin Reynolds, his former personal secretary, private secretary, is still working in government, despite the fact that in this report, he asks of someone who questioned his organising of one event, he says, we got away with it. Isn't that rather extraordinary that someone that senior sees the danger and yet goes ahead with an event that is clearly against the rules?
Yes, it is extraordinary, actually. And, you know, the question was asked of the Prime Minister, why did you lie to Parliament? And the Prime Minister answered, well, I didn't think at the time, because it was a workplace, I was breaking the rules. And how could he have that knowledge other than the fact that he was given that advice by senior people in the civil service? And for all I know,
he set
it
the
might
rules.
have been...
I mean, the Prime Minister doesn't need anyone, surely, to tell him what the rules are when he's drawn them up. I mean, anyone with an ounce of common sense knows what kind of event you're going into, and work-leaving events were not specified as exemptions, were they?
But he doesn't draw it up. I mean, several journalists have said this to me today from different radio and television stations. Prime Ministers don't draw up detailed rules. That's done by the civil service. The whole idea of the rules, if you recall, was to ensure there wasn't mixing, there wasn't cross-infection. These were all people who were working closely together anyway in the Number 10 Downing Street environment. And he thought that he was
if members of the public were supposed to know what the rules were, are you seriously saying that the Prime Minister shouldn't have known what the law was that his government had instituted?
He takes advice. And you asked me about Simon Case, and I'm saying he took advice from the civil service. The civil service said, yeah, this is a workplace, you are allowed to do it.
So in your view, having an event where you're thanking staff who are leaving with alcohol, you think that is within the rules, even though the Prime Minister was fined for it?
Well, the rule was not.
Sorry, he wasn't fined for it. He was criticised for it.
Exactly. The whole object of the exercise was not to spread disease. He will have taken advice. He did take advice from the civil service because it was a workplace. If you go back to those dark years 2 years ago now, I think we're talking about, there were very, very clear rules about staying away from work if you could do so and how you should behave at work. There was no rule saying, oh, you can't have alcohol, but you can have Coca-Cola or orange juice. Now, I'm not condoning any of this, but you know, it's too easy to be simplistic. And if you don't mind my saying so, I think some people are being simplistic. And Tobias Ellwood,
okay, can I just put one final question to you?
Sure, please.
You know, there's been a Snap YouGov poll, and we have to be very cautious about polling because obviously it isn't always correct. But it follows the sort of broad recent patterns of these things. That 3/4 roughly of the population do believe the Prime Minister knowingly lied about breaking rules, including a majority of Conservative voters. 3 in 5 Brits say Boris Johnson should resign. Are you not worried about going into the next election with Boris Johnson at your helm? Because to some, this feels like the end of an era, the end of a long period of Conservative rule where you're really heading for defeat.
Well, you were right to say, you know, we've got to be cautious about a YouGov poll, but, you know, it does reflect a strong point of view at the moment. And I do understand that because I not only get the sort of reaction that you're talking about from people in the street when I'm in London or when I'm in Lichfield or Burntwood in my constituency. I get it as well from people within my own association. But, you know, opinion polls change over time because attitudes change over time. Let's just see where we are in 6 months or a year from now. And if we can just get past this. So the answer, I think, in simplicity to your question is I'm not worried, but I'm slightly concerned, of course, that we're not seeing the end of a Conservative government, because I certainly don't think that a Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, would have achieved what we achieved in Ukraine and with the economy, that I'm afraid, you know, we're not afraid, but very proud to say Boris Johnson has achieved.
Okay, Michael Fabricant, thank you very much indeed for your time today, much appreciated.